Hi there, this is a preview for the RPG projects that are crowdfunded in March 2016. The month March is very crowded from an RPG perspective, especially for crowdfunding. There are a lot of really great projects going on that will end in March. As usually, I will only look at projects that actually end in March, so there might be some projects that have already started, but since they will end in April, I haven't covered them in here, and they will be covered in the next edition if they are then still going strong. But this month there's two new things. One, given the high number of really good projects, I decided to put a little bit more of them here than usual. You can, as always, find the complete list of all projects in the video description below, and you can then have a look also at those projects that I didn't discuss here, but this time there will be a lot more projects in the video too. Furthermore, there's another edition. I've started looking at Indiegogo too. Indiegogo is a little bit harder to take into account because you can pledge for a project on Indiegogo even after it has finished. So I might not have got the best, completest set of RPG games there. I just decided to take those where it seemed like they were still open and going on and will be ending in March. But of course, there are some projects where you can still pledge that have been going on beforehand. Let's start with RPG systems. And if you watch this video, then most likely you will already have backed this one specific project, 7th Sea, the second edition, which has become the most funded pen-paper RPG project of all time on Kickstarter, and which has a very interesting pledge. If you pledge $40 or more, then you get all PDFs that have ever been created for 7th Sea, basically. So all PDFs for first edition, and also all PDFs that will be created for 7th Sea in this Kickstarter, be it the ones that are included already, or be it the ones from stretch goals. If you're interested in printed books, there's also some options here, and you see you can pledge up to 2,500. Well, they are all gone, but like a lot of money if you're really interested in getting all of the prints, because up to this point there's, I would guess, like 15 books maybe that, or not necessarily books, but books, maps and stuff that will be produced with from this Kickstarter. Next one, also very well known, is Apocalypse World, and the second edition that hasn't gone live on Kickstarter is almost up, so if you're interested, you need to back now. Apocalypse World, I'll give you a quick overview, because compared to 7th Sea, which is really famous, and if you don't know it, just look it up and never tell anyone you didn't know it. Apocalypse World was the basis for example, also Dungeon World from the rule perspective, which I like a little bit more. Apocalypse World is set in an apocalyptic setting, and it's a lot about being easy to play, and the second edition most likely tries to continue with this too. Next on our list is Conan, the role-playing game, which is also very famous in the community nowadays, and also if you're interested in fantasy and it's not about high fantasy, high magic, it's more about like, Conan, then definitely have a look at this one. The last one of the really big new role-playing games or new editions is Cult Divinity Lost, which is the second edition for Cult, which has been a big role-playing game 25 years ago, and it's about horror, as you might have guessed. I'm not sure yet about the rules, because I haven't really had the chance to take a look at it, but Cult itself was a great role-playing game at that time, and I'm pretty sure that they managed to give it a nice revamp here. Next on our list is Dungeonesque Red Box RPG, which basically is a reprint of the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons rules. So why just don't buy Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition? The idea here is that the books are a little bit cheaper, and they are a little less precious to people, so you can write in it, you can make notes and just use it for that. And also they try to get the vibe of the older Dungeons and Dragons in the art design. So if you're fan of old school D&D, this might be interesting for you if you want to get to know 5th edition with different pictures. Completely new is Pugmire Fantasy Tabletop RPG, which, as the name implies, is set in a world where you can play dogs, or, well, dog-like people. And I think that's basically all there is to say about that. If you like dogs, then have a look at this one. On the other hand, if you are from the cat fraction, then Laser Kittens might be for you. It's an RPG about tiny kitties growing up, as the name implies, and the idea is that the kitties have laser power. So if you look at the eyes, then whenever the cat's eyes are mysteriously glowing, they're using their laser power. And for example, Zoo Zoo Zoo, which summons other animals, View 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 to view the future, or Shoo 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 to get things away. Also, from the rules perspective, this is very interesting because they are working with cards instead of dice, and then you try to use poker cards and build poker hands for different rules. And also there is a little bit of an element of changing Game Master during play. Chariot is also an RPG that uses cards, in this case tarot cards. The idea here is that it's a civilization that is on the brink of destruction or somehow just is going down, and the player characters know when they are going to die, so what will they do until that point to save someone else or save the civilization somehow. From the rules perspective, they use tarot cards to play, and based on this warning you see here, the author tells us that it will be very adult themed, which from an RPG perspective can be boring, but I think especially for a more fantasy-like setting it isn't used that often, so I think it might work out. Next one is the Inside Fantasy RPG, where player characters have the ability to alter the story. So it's not really a storytelling role-playing game in the sense that players and GM create a story together, and it's more about telling good story than about rolling your dice. But instead, you roll your dice to change the story, and it's one of the skills you can have. So instead of throw fireball, you have change history or something like that. At least that's the way I understood it. It sounds like a very interesting premise, especially trying to mix a little bit storytelling play style with number crunching power gaming stuff. So I'm looking forward to this one. Looking at supplements for existing games, first one that I find really interesting is the Gemhammer Deck of Many Things, which is a supplement basically to D&D-like games. It has some rules on these cards, but they, as far as I can tell, are not specific to one very specific edition of fantasy, D&D, Pathfinder, something like that. And these cards contain, as the name Deck of Many Things implies, many things. So there are some that are really helpful and some that are really bad. And I haven't read all of them, but it sounds like it's really a pack of cards that you can have a look at, draw one or two of them, give them to players, or look at them at the GM and have a very fun evening. Next, the Baby Bestiary Volume 2 is out, or will be out, including a reprint of Volume 1, which is a collection of monsters, but it's not monsters with a lot of fighting power, it's babies. So it's the babies of monsters. You can see a lot of very cute illustrations here. And included is, instead of fighting stats, general care, training, how to nurse them, stuff like that. And actually, I really like the pictures. That's the main reason I chose it. But I guess you can also have a lot of great stories told about caring for misunderstood poor little monsters. If you're playing Pathfinder, then you might want to have a look at the Letters from the Flaming Crab, which is a monthly letter sent as a PDF, which includes supplements for, as your name might implies, Pathfinder. I don't know about the supplements, so you might want to check first if that's really interesting for you. I don't play Pathfinder, so I can't really judge, but the idea of getting monthly subscription of role-playing supplements sounds really interesting. For Worldwide Wrestling RPG, there is a supplement called International Incident, which includes more international fighting styles and a little bit more rules. Then there is Mutant GenLab Alpha for Mutant Year Zero, which allows you to play furry mutants. The Gossamer Worlds Compendium for the Diceless Gossamer RPG, which includes the description of a lot of worlds. The Secrets of Cats Feline Magic, which is a supplement for the Secrets of Cats and talks about how cats can use their magic. AMP Year 3, the third, if I got it right, supplement for Modern Supers RPG, which focuses on the year 2017 and what it will do to the world. And then there is Shangri-La, which is a sourcebook describing LA post-apocalypse. So 26th century, and very interesting from a content perspective for all kinds of RPGs. This month we have only 2 settings, and both for Savage Worlds. First being High Space, a classical sci-fi setting, and the second one World War I, which is a successor to World War II, and World War Rome, and the Tour of Darkness, which is set in the Vietnam War. So it's trying to get a little bit more darkness into these dark areas. All modules with deadlines in March have one thing in common: they are fantasy themed. The first one, The Lost Temple of Forgotten Evil, is set for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and includes both quests which are based on combat as well as those which are played on role-playing, as the author puts it. Then there's, for Hyperborea, The Mystery at Port Greeley, which seems to be a little bit about horror. I haven't really found anything about it in the text, but based on the pictures, I would guess that it is horror-focused and also fantasy-focused, and it can be played with a lot of different fantasy settings and rule sets. Next is Rise of the Watchers for level 1 to 20 evil characters. It's for Pathfinder, and you can play evil guys trying to do evil stuff and try to kill innocent and stuff like that. So if you wanted to do that, have a look. There is Dark Obelisk, which is the first adventure for an adventure path for Pathfinder RPG. So it says a dynamic adventure path, but actually the project itself is only about the PDF for the first adventure, which will be used as the basis for the rest of the adventure path. And then there's Crisis of the World Eater for Pathfinder 2, which includes a lot of different adventures, and there is a free version or free 40-page adventure that you can download for pay what you want. So basically not free, but if you want to have a look, just have a look before making the campaign. Before going through all the accessories you can use for role-playing, here are some projects that are RPG related but not necessarily about RPGs themselves. For example, the ABCs of RPGs, which is a coloring book which focuses on the letters A to Z, but based on role-playing terms like adventure, book, creatures, or dice. There is Golden Dragon 1 Crypt of the Vampire Collector's Edition, which is a solo playing book, so you can read it and choose your own adventure path style, go from one chapter to the next. And in the same direction, but as you can see from the pictures, a lot different setting, there is this Star Bastards, which is set in a sci-fi setting with interesting looking monsters. Is it monsters? Not really sure if they're even supposed to be evil. Even though March is the first month in the history of these recordings that there has not been any dice project, there is one project that is dice related. It's the Dragon Sheath, which allows you to store your dice, store a pen, store a miniature, store some coins, whatever you want, and keep them and bring them to your gaming sessions. There's also the Legendary Metal Coins Season 2, which can be put in this Dragon Sheath, which contains of different kinds of coins. There's Cthulhu-themed, Roman-themed, Viking-themed, Egyptian, Spartan, Cyberpunk, and unit coins. And, of course, there's some stretch goals that also look really interesting. Never thought that coins could have these forms without breaking, but, well, doesn't have to be realistic. And of course, since it's Season 2, there's also Season 1, so you can get the coins from the first season here, which are also quite nice to look at. If you're more about bling, then the glowing cup might be for you, which is a cup to roll dice with light in it. There are no new dice, but there's definitely a lot of new terrain coming up. And the first project here is one where I'm still wondering why they have so much problems with funding, because I think it's a really great job the people did for this thing. It's Battle Map Layers, which allows you to choose a lot of these things like large chasms and rivers and ruin walls, and just put them on your gaming map and they will stick automatically based on some adhesive. And then after you've stick them there, you can just roll up the map and bring it to your gaming session. So you can rebuild your floor plans whenever you need them and just bring them to the gaming session, or modify them during the gaming session, or even build them during the gaming session. Furthermore, they thought about shipment to the EU, and the EU shipment is something that is a big pain for a lot of folks who are from the EU, like myself. So that's another plus point. And yeah, the stretch goals also look very amazing with a lot of more new tiles. So definitely have a look at this one. There's also Dungeonscape's modular dungeon terrain, which has the big advantage of being three-dimensional. You can see it here, including the sewers. Then the Dungeon Worlds, which has nothing to do with Dungeon World, as far as I can tell, but is also in 3D. The Tiles of Adventuring tabletop grid system, which is just a transparent grid you can plug together and put on top of your maps. The Awakening gaming turn, which isn't fantasy, but it's sci-fi fantasy, so a little bit different and very interesting if you like these kinds of games. The Black Side X and Rapid Vanguard turn, which is also very futuristic. The Black Maria designs Steampunk Western turn, which is not futuristic but Western and might fit well, for example, for Deadlands. And the Hidden Forest Gaming European tabletop gaming mats with some backgrounds that can be used not only for playing RPGs but also like Star Wars Attack Wing and Star Trek Attack Wing and Star Wars. Oh, I always mix them up. You know what I'm talking about, and if you don't, just look at the picture. And last but not least, the Neo the Game 3D RPG tabletop terrain, which also has a lot of different small parts you can put together to build your three-dimensional terrain. Our last category today are miniatures. The first one being the AVIC miniatures from ECMO Sword, and you might remember these pictures if you have looked at my last video, because they have already tried to fund these but didn't manage to last time. Last time these were part of a larger collection, and now they decided to split it up and just start with one kind of miniature, which seems to work pretty good because they are funded already, and I hope that this strategy helps them to figure out which kind of miniatures the players actually like and focus on those. Then there is the Shield Maiden miniatures here. There's Fantasy Champions, which are inspired by ancient civilizations. There is the Dwarf Veteran Warband, which has a lot of different dwarves in it. The Return to Colony 87, with civilians for a sci-fi setting, so like mechanics and whatever their jobs might be. The Global Defense Forces GDF with futuristic marines. The Wolf's Head miniatures, which are sci-fi robots for robot battling. The Warbands of the Cold North with Viking miniatures. And the Empire in Peril with miniatures that are from the Imperial German Army beginning of the 20th century. And that's it for the March. I hope you found one or two interesting projects that you're going to back. I'm always interested in hearing what kinds of RPG projects you are interested in and which ones you liked. And if you liked this video, found it informative, just feel free to subscribe to get the next one end of next month. See you then.